the rest of his life.
He's a murderer. He killed Joel. He killed Jessica.
I'm not going to admit someone else's guilt, period, ever, ever.
Lives torn apart.
Doesn't anybody want to talk?
Family bonds stretched to the brink.
I've never seen anything like this before in my career, have you?
Now, new evidence suggests the police might have gotten the wrong man, leaving a killer on the loose.
Jessica told us who killed her, and justice was done.
March 22nd, 2001, 6:09 p.m. Louisville, Kentucky 911 operators receive a series of chilling calls.
911, what's your emergency? I was shot. You been shot? Who shot you, ma'am? My cousin. Your cousin shot you? Yeah.
Police and ambulance units are dispatched to the house in a quiet neighborhood on the edge of the city.
Ma'am, the police are there. Can you hear us?
They find 24-year-old Jessica Hawkins clinging to life from 5 gunshot wounds, including one that tore through her mouth and shattered her jaw. She is rushed to the hospital, but is pronounced dead a short time later. Then police make another grisly discovery. Jessica's boyfriend, 29-year-old Joel Blevins, is found dead on the kitchen floor, shot once through the forehead. With a double murder on their hands, police develop leads on the cousin Jessica mentioned in the 911 call. At the top of their list, her 27-year-old cousin, Patrick McCreary. Later that night, McCreary is picked up without incident in a neighboring county. After being grilled by the police for more than 10 hours, McCreary is arrested and charged with the murders. A year and a half later, after 2 trials, the jury delivers a unanimous verdict.
We, the jury, find the defendant, John Patrick McCreary, guilty.
McCreary's sentence, life in prison. But from the time of his arrest, McCreary has always maintained his innocence, claiming that the police, in their haste, simply got it wrong. And backing McCreary up is a host of loyal supporters who have been working tirelessly to free him. And now, after 4 years of work, they say they finally have the evidence that proves McCreary is the wrong man. My name is Jerry Pallas. I'm a private investigator and former detective with the New York City Police Department. Court TV hired me and my partner, former NYPD homicide detective Reggie Britt, to investigate this case.
Okay, let's go.
Reggie and I did a little background work and then flew down to Louisville to get some answers. What was at stake here was a man's life. But in this case, what we wound up discovering about McCreary and the crime would shock even Reggie and myself.
These 911 calls, these are really crucial to this case. The reason this guy is in jail is because of the 911 tapes.
Diana Slay, McCreary's mother, has been crusading for her son's freedom since his arrest. She's maintained that Patrick had a good relationship with his cousin and that he would never have hurt her.
Can you tell us everything about the case?
It's all a farce. There's no physical evidence linking him to the crime. He has witnesses that say he was someplace else during this crime.
And there was no blood evidence
Nothing.
on Patrick. They took his clothes that evening.
Clothes he had on, they took his shoes, his pager, his billfold. They tested the floor mats of his car. They tested his car.
No splattered blood on anything, nothing on his...
No blood evidence
Nothing,
on
nothing at all. They didn't take fingerprints at the crime scene. They did not bag the hands of the victims. There were everything they should have done, they didn't.
What do you think about the 911 calls?
Her first call, when you hear it, you understand, but she is just moaning. It's, just no words, just moaning sounds. And then she hangs up, and then 911 calls her house.
Does she ever say the word cousin?
Yes, she does say cousin.
But she doesn't call out a name?
They claim that she says Pat.
Okay. Well, what did it sound like to you?
It's not Pat.
What does it say?
I think she's saying Travis.
Why?
Because that's what it sounds like. At one point, she says, Travis shot me.
At trial, Diana took the stand with a copy of the 911 call that she had slowed down using software on her personal computer. She was trying to show that Jessica Hawkins, in her dying breath, had implicated someone else entirely, Travis Thompson, Joel Blevins' first cousin.
Who shot you, ma'am? I just shot me. Ma'am, talk to me. Who shot you? I got the police and the EMS on the way. Who shot you?
We couldn't make out anything definitive. But listening to this poor girl taking her last breaths was one of the most chilling things I've ever heard.
I really couldn't, it was very difficult on that, but I'm sure there's something there. Suppose that tape worked on it and it comes back, it's not Travis, and it's Patrick.
May not say Travis, but it will not say Patrick.
You sure of that?
I'm absolutely sure.
Absolutely sure.
Absolutely.
Reggie and I wondered just how the prosecution convicted Patrick solely on the audibility of the tape. No blood was found on Patrick's clothes. No fingerprints linked him to the crime. And no murder weapon was ever found.
There's a chance that Travis may have been involved, right? Yeah. So that's something we gotta check out.
At this point, what we knew about Travis Thompson, Joel's first cousin, didn't look good. We knew that he had a prior arrest record and supposedly had a violent temper. So we opened up the phone book and started calling people with the same last name.
Can I speak to Travis Thompson, please?
You know a guy named Travis? All right, thanks a lot.
Reggie and I had a hard time tracking down an address or phone number for the guy, and we heard that he might have left the area. The night of McCreary's arrest, investigators found $500 in cash hidden in a trailer where he was staying. Prosecutors maintain he had stolen the money from Jessica and Joel, and when they resisted, a petty misdemeanor turned into a senseless double murder. But why would McCreary rob his cousin? And why kill her and her boyfriend over $500? It didn't seem to make much sense. So the next day, we drove about 160 miles east of Louisville to the Little Sandy Correctional Complex, a medium security facility where Patrick is currently serving out his life sentence. Unless some new evidence comes forward, this is likely where he'll spend the rest of his life.
Go to the day of the incident. Tell us about that day.
But I basically just went from one friend to another down the back roads in Trimble County, which is where I'm from.
Now, explain something now. We know where the homicide took place. How far were your friends' homes from that?
Approximately, might be 45, 55 minutes, but I'm guessing an hour.
Well, how long did it take you that day?
I never made that trip that day. I never made the trip that day to Louisville. That car was not interstate worthy. The car I was driving at this time was crap. You could probably make it go 50, but it'd probably blow up.
I'd like you to elaborate a little bit more detail about what you did that day, your alibi.
I went to probably 3 or 4 different people's friend of mine's houses that day, and I went to, I believe, Danny McFarland's, which is a good friend of mine. Stayed there for a little while.
When they took you into custody, where were you at?
At my cousin's house in Milton.
In
Milton, Kentucky.
This is your cousin,
Jeremy Wood.
What about the $500?
That was money from birthday, which I was planning on buying a transmission for the car that I had. And I'd just been saving it up. My dad gave me money, my mother gave me money, my sister gave me money.
Prior to this incident, you ever have any kind of criminal history, anything?
I had a misdemeanor in '93.
For what?
My friend stole some CDs, and he had just had a newborn son, and I took the rap for it.
That was it for you?
Yeah.
How'd you feel when you heard that Jessica was dead? I mean,
shocked.
Inside it. You felt shocked?
Yes.
That's it? I mean, anything else? This is your cousin, you know?
Just curious about the whole situation as to why, and, you know, it's just a big shock, you know? It's kind of hard to explain unless it's ever happened to you.
Explain it. Explain it to me. We're here. We're willing to listen.
You know?
We want to hear.
And they're telling you she's dead, she was murdered, and they're looking at you. You're the man in the hot seat.
Yeah.
How's it feel?
Pretty powerful. Yeah.
Are you the wrong man?
Yes, sir. 100%. No doubt about it.
Well, he said he put himself about an hour away, 50 miles away. He didn't have too much of a criminal record, from what we gather. He sounded like maybe like a petty larceny type of thing.
Doesn't sound like a violent guy at all.
No.
Unless he was whacked out on some drugs. That we don't know.
Reggie and I listened to the tape again, trying to see if we could hear anything that sounded like Patrick or Travis. But Jessica's voice was so muffled from the gunshot wound to her mouth that we couldn't make out what she was saying.
Hey, listen, we need some audio expert down in the Kentucky area, Indiana area. You got somebody for me?
Through some contacts back in New York, we tracked down a forensic audio expert who had no prior knowledge of the case. We wanted an honest, uninterested party to help us interpret the tape. The case against McCreary and his mother's continued effort to free her son both hinged on what the dying woman said. But we had no idea where the mystery of who killed Jessica and Joel was going to take us. As Reggie and I dug further into the case, some things didn't add up. There was no physical evidence linking Patrick McCreary to the crime. Witnesses testified at trial that he was an hour away from the crime scene when the murders occurred. And there was a barely audible 911 tape pointing to him as the killer. He did have a criminal record, but it was for a misdemeanor back in 1993. Small-time stuff.
This is where she was making that phone call from.
That's a horrible crime scene.
She lost a lot of blood, this girl. Look at this, all over the couch. Yeah.
We spent the next few days poring over the case files, trying to piece together what happened that fateful night.
Joel's body's found over here.
What's this, the fridge?
Yeah. This is the back door. But she was shot basically through here.
Maybe she hears gunshots.
And she runs
Joel
in
gets
here.
shot, comes in, see what's going on.
And
this guy starts pegging shots at her right away.
Yeah. He believes she's dead. He flees out the back door and leaves.
She runs outside, collapses outside the doorway on the rear deck. She got that much to pull herself up and get to that phone and make phone calls. I mean, she's one tough little girl. Yeah.
We needed to figure out what possible motive McCreary could have had for the murders. The robbery theory had some major holes in it.
But this guy said that the motive was robbery.
If it was a robbery, we found some money, $180 was on her person.
There's other money. There's about $700 in cash found at the scene.
Why would McCreary have only stolen $500 if there'd been so much more cash lying around the house?
This is Jerry Pallas from Court TV.
But despite evidence tipping in favor of McCreary's innocence, a disturbing pattern was developing.
Okay, is there anyone I could speak to that maybe could get me in touch with him? We'd like to speak with you regarding Patrick McCreary case. Let's see if he calls us back.
None of his defense attorneys from either trial were returning our calls.
I have to speak to you. Thanks.
And even more surprising, we were beginning to encounter people in McCreary's own family who were less than supportive of him, including his and Jessica's grandmother.
Now listen, don't be asking me nothing about Patrick. Patrick was my grandson also, and I believe Jessica on her dying bed.
I mean, are you quite sure about that?
Who killed her? I know who killed her. Patrick did.
We learned that throughout the trial, the family was essentially split down the middle. Some believed him, while others wanted to put him in the chair. Bad blood had erupted on both sides of the courtroom.
I know tensions are high. I want to again implore you all, keep your cool.
Jessica's mother, Wanda Lawson, lived about a half an hour south of Louisville. At the time of the murders, the two were repairing what had been a difficult relationship.
Hi, Jerry. My daughter Jessica was a very loving person. As far as the last few years before this happened, I really wasn't close to her, but I tried to be with her as much as I could.
What kind of relationship did Joel and Jessica have?
A love-hate relationship. He beat her up all the time, and she fought back. And I mean, he wouldn't hit her or anything in front of me, but she would always go back to him.
When you found out it had been your daughter that was murdered, and Joel too, what was your first thought on who did it?
I automatically assumed that it was Joel either shot Jessica or Jessica shot Joel.
Really?
Jessica had went that day to the doctor to see if she was pregnant. They said she was pregnant, and so I think Joel and her got into it about it, and I think that Joel shot her. Joel was a drug dealer.
Oh, really?
And her dad was the one that told her that she should turn Joel in.
What, did she turn him in?
Yeah, she turned him in 3 times.
What was the relationship between Jessica and Patrick McCreary that you know of?
That I know of, they had a good relationship. When they told me that he did it, it just didn't feel right in my heart that he did it. I just feel like there's more to it than what's happened through the court system. I don't think that they've got the right person.
Wanda also told us that after Jessica had turned Joel in for drugs, Jessica became an official police informant. According to the records, Joel had been arrested 3 times on marijuana charges.
She says the motive why Jessica became an informant was to get Joel in trouble with the law, so that might change him. Either he goes to jail for a little while and straightens out or whatever.
Some of McCreary's supporters believe that Joel's cousin, Travis Thompson, murdered the couple when he discovered that Jessica was going to snitch on a big drug deal that he and Joel were involved in. But if Jessica had been an informant, there would be some evidence to back up that claim. And we weren't having any luck tracking down someone from the police department who could confirm or deny it. And as for Joel Blevins, we hadn't heard too many positive things about him. But his family contends that McCreary supporters have been spreading inaccuracies and outright lies about Joel for years. We went to talk to his sister and his parents, whose anguish was clear from the start.
It's been almost 5 years. I just can't accept the fact that Joel's not going to come home. I think he's going to pull in the driveway someday. We had a very close relationship.
They brought up all kinds of different scenarios. They were throwing out this theory, that it was a murder-suicide. Maybe your son was involved in drugs. Another theory was his own cousin, Travis Thompson. What did you think when you heard that?
I thought they were just grabbing for everything it could grab.
Did it even enter into anybody's mind that this was something like this would be even possible?
No.
Oh, no way. They had no evidence whatsoever to even connect Travis with anything. None. And they're putting it on the internet. I mean, even saying that he is the one that belongs in prison because he is the murderer.
What do you want to tell this McCreary family? His mother thinks, obviously, that he's innocent.
Wasting your time. Don't you have something else to do than sit in front of your computer and type all of these false statements and all these things you want to make up?
She needs to talk to him straight and get him to confess what he's done.
He has taken from me one of the most important things of my life. Every year is another year without him.
I'd just like to see an ending to it.
Here's a homicide that's committed by somebody very close. And the suspects outside of the guy that's in jail is another cousin. Right. That's what's ripping their families apart. It's very unusual. Right. Matter of fact, I've never seen anything like this before in my career. Have you?
No, not like this.
With Joel's parents dismissing the notion that their own nephew, Travis Thompson, could be the real killer, we were starting to feel like we were smack in the middle of a good old-fashioned family feud. And it was time to run down some new leads on Thompson. What we would find next would shed a blinding new light on the entire investigation. After meeting with the families of the victims, it was time to learn more about Travis Thompson, the person who McCreary supporters say is the real killer.
If it's not the guy in jail, the other alleged perp is the first cousin on the other side of the family.
They're naming another cousin. Yeah, that's right.
McCreary's people painted Thompson as a violent drug user with a criminal record, suggesting that he killed Jessica and Joel after discovering that Jessica was an informant. The evidence they present does look suspicious. Travis took a shower around the time of the murders, despite the fact that he was going to Joel's to work on some heavy construction equipment. He apparently made inconsistent statements to the police, including knowledge of Joel's wounds before it was made public.
Jerry, Travis was there that night. He was outside. The police spoke to him. He said he'd just taken a shower.
And according to McCreary's supporters, the name Jessica utters on her dying 911 call is Travis, not Patrick. McCreary's defense lawyers and supporters also point towards incompetence on the part of the police, charging that in their haste, they missed crucial evidence and contaminated the crime scene. No fingerprints were taken, cars were not searched, and most of all, as police conducted a manhunt for Joel for nearly an hour, the whole time he lay unnoticed in a pool of blood on the kitchen floor, a few feet from where the officers entered.
I don't know how they did it.
Two guys entered this house at the same time. They both went in.
Come through the back door, both of them.
I would have had my gun out. I've been looking all over the place, high and low.
Reggie and I wondered, if they can miss a body, what else do they overlook?
She deserves for her cousin to be convicted of murder, because that's what he is. He's a murderer.
In light of the accusations of police misconduct, Brian Butler, the lead prosecutor in both trials, agreed to meet with us and explain the case against McCreary.
Jessica's found immediately when they went in. Was Joel's body found the same?
No, they did. They did not find Joel's body right away.
That seems very strange to me, because unless you're looking up in the ceiling, how do you know how you can miss that body?
When the police arrived, they knew they were looking for Jessica, who was harmed terribly. How they missed him on the floor, I don't know.
And there was no weapon ever recovered?
There was no weapon recovered.
There was a story that Jessica may have been a police informant. Is that true?
No, that was not true.
Jessica was never, what would you say, a registered informant?
She was absolutely not registered as an informant.
Was it clear to you from that tape, beyond a reasonable doubt, clear to you that Jessica did say Patrick? I mean, can you hear that?
Absolutely. Obviously, the strongest piece of evidence was Jessica's dying declaration that her cousin had killed her.
Was it presented as a dying declaration?
Yes, it was, meaning that someone, knowing that they are dying, makes a statement on their deathbed. Those statements, because they're so inherently truthful, because you're going to meet God, those statements are admitted into evidence.
Take the tape away. I mean, say somebody deemed it was inaudible or whatever.
Patrick McCreary was not just convicted on a tape. She'd also told two other people, one of which was a relative of Patrick McCreary. Both of these women telling different police officers, my cousin called me in her dying breath and said Patrick McCreary was her murderer. There was a massive amount of different theories thrown and threw up the murder-suicide avenue. Obviously, that didn't work because there was no murder weapon. You know, the drug dealer thing. At the very end, after all of them had been discredited, the focus became, well, Travis Thompson must have done it. Point of fact, Travis Thompson was not a cousin of Jessica Hawkins. He was a cousin of Joel Blevins.
How was Travis ruled out?
Well, I mean, ultimately, everyone was ruled out by Jessica Hawkins. She told us who did it. You have a woman that's been shot multiple times, knew she was going to meet God, and told her best friend and her aunt, and she told a 911 operator, and through that tape, she told that jury who killed her, and justice was done.
Butler had given us a startling revelation. Besides calling 911, Jessica managed to call two other people on the phone before she died.
And that's when she told me she'd been shot. And I asked her, I said, did Joe do this? And she said, no, my cousin Patrick.
The testimony of Leanne Muncie, Jessica's friend, and Emma Faust, an aunt of both Jessica and Patrick, was devastating to the defense.
He said, you have the tape, you got the two calls to the other witnesses, her aunt and her friend.
It was the first time we heard or realized that it was entered into evidence as a dying declaration. We didn't know that.
And that's very powerful.
Especially one of the witnesses that implicated Patrick was Patrick's fraternal aunt.
To Patrick. Yes. So for her to give up a relative, it's something you wouldn't do.
Phone records show a flurry of calls between Jessica, 911, Leanne, and Emma.
1810. That's it. 1, 2, 3, 4 calls to 911.
According to McCreary's supporters, both Emma and Leanne gave conflicting and unreliable testimony during trial, part of a conspiracy to set Patrick up as the killer.
It goes all the way back. This is the last known addresses here, Jerry. I think it's right up this block. This is it, right? Oh, that's a block there?
Well, as close to the block as you're going to get.
We checked out an old address we had on Emma Faust, but soon discovered that she had left the area.
Hello, can I speak to Emma Faust? Moved out 2 weeks ago? Would you have their new number?
We had better luck with Leanne, finding an address on the outskirts of Louisville.
Hi, how you doing? Hi, Jerry Palace, Reggie Britt. We're from Court TV. Is Leanne Muncie here? Can we,
I don't want to talk. Shut the door. Goodbye.
Well, that's the shortest interview we ever did.
We didn't know who to trust anymore, and it was becoming more and more clear that the answers would be found on that 911 tape we had sent off to our forensic audio expert. This is Jerry Palace from Court TV. Reggie and I made one last-ditch effort to try and convince one of McCreary's attorneys to speak with us about the case. We're in Louisville. We'd like to speak to you. Thank you very much. Bye. Eventually, we did receive a call back from two of his trial attorneys, but they were reluctant to go on camera. We were also having a hard time getting information from McCreary's alibi witnesses. And when we reviewed the court records, we had a feeling why. Reggie and I uncovered discrepancies in several of their statements.
March 26, Jeremy Wood stated that he returned to the trailer about 8:30 p.m.
Now he's making it 3.5 hours later?
That doesn't help Patrick at all.
This prosecutor probably ripped this guy apart when they put him on the witness stand.
The statement he gave detectives placed him with one friend at the time of the murders, yet he told us he was with someone else. With holes growing in McCreary's alibi, Reggie and I decided to head up to Trimble County, about 50 miles northeast of Louisville, to see if we could track down anyone who could clear it up. McCreary claims he never left Trimble County the day of the murders.
He supposedly had a car that couldn't go over a certain mile per hour, I think 35, 45.
While we drove, we clocked the route to see if he could have made the trip as quickly as prosecutors claimed.
Murder was committed at 6:10, 6:12. We're hitting all over an hour right here now.
I know.
This whole thing is not concrete, but it does work good for his alibi.
Granddaughter said they've gone. I don't guess anybody's home anyway.
You remember him, right?
We knocked on a lot of doors, but no one who knew McCreary would come forward on camera.
Yeah, I think it's right up there.
But according to the people we spoke to, he had been heavily involved in drugs, was prone to violence, and suffered from depression. His girlfriend had just left him shortly before the murders, and he had no money, no job, and had apparently threatened to commit suicide. Suddenly, the robbery motive was looking pretty good.
Thanks a lot. Thank you, appreciate it.
Jerry Nieves was the lead detective on the case. The morning after the murders, he questioned McCreary for several hours before placing him under arrest.
Okay, now what happens when you meet this guy for the first time, Patrick?
I meet Patrick McCreary at the homicide office, the Jefferson County Police homicide office at the time. My interview led me to get what I refer to as an indirect admission of guilt from Patrick McCreary. I asked him specifically, when Jessica said, "You shot her, is she lying?" He absolutely said no. He avoids eye contact, he looks away, he begins to get tearful, he leans forward, he shakes his head.
You're a trained, seasoned detective at this point. You worked on other homicides. How do you interpret this? As being evasive?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And what else do you do to convict this guy, to prosecute him and convict him?
He was also given a polygraph by the homicide polygraph unit.
Okay.
Which, according to the polygraph operator, he failed. He failed the polygraph given to him by the police. His alibis could not be verified.
And we understand that there was this other guy, this Travis Thompson, that was put up. What did you think about that? That he could have been a suspect in this?
Initially, no. But obviously when it's brought up, then we have to look into it. It has to be looked into, once again, to either confirm or dismiss the fact that they are a suspect. Travis Thompson, there's no evidence or anything that would implicate him or that would indicate that he would have any involvement whatsoever in this case.
Is there any doubt in your mind that you got the right guy behind bars?
Absolutely not. There's no doubt in my mind that the right person was found guilty for the crime of a double murder.
As Reggie and I left Detective Nieves, we were clearly feeling that the case for McCreary's innocence was on very shaky ground. But we knew that everything hinged on the 911 recording. With her dying breath, did Jessica say Patrick, or did she say Travis? After a lot of digging, we turned up some information on Travis Thompson, who some say is the alternate suspect in the double murders. We learned that he might be working along a stretch of highway south of Louisville.
You know a guy named Travis?
We had heard he was dangerous.
Doesn't ring a bell at all, huh?
Doesn't ring a bell. No?
Sure?
And everywhere we went, he seemed to be one step ahead of us. At McCreary's trial, the defense tried to trip up Thompson on the stand in an attempt to make him look like the killer.
I never said that to anyone that day. I said that.
Reggie and I were impressed how well he handled the defense tactics.
I didn't walk up to people at that time and say, my cousin has just been shot in the face. That's not what I said. You just said it different than you said it before.
Our investigation found nothing to prove the claim that Jessica had been a police informant. So Thompson's alleged motive for the killings didn't hold up.
Hi, how are you today?
Hey, how's it going?
You know a guy named Travis Thompson around here?
I can't come up with anything, man.
Me neither.
Zilch.
Out of date.
Just when we had given up hope, we got a call out of the blue from Travis Thompson himself. Word had spread that we were in town, and he wanted to sit down and clear the air.
You're a hard man to get a hold of.
Originally, I was, my stance on this was to ignore it. It seems like every time I start to get something positive going, you know, I mean, it's, you know, it rips a scab off.
Mm-hmm.
It starts all over again.
Tell us about that day in particular that you lost your cousin.
I was supposed to go over to his house and help him put the tracks on his skid loader. And, I mean, I got home from work, and he called me about 5:30. I got in the shower. I drove over there, and when I first pulled in, there were cops everywhere. And I was trying to get a hold of him, you know, on my cell phone. I was burning his cell phone up, and Detective Nieves was the first person to actually come out and tell me that someone was dead in the house, and I asked him if it was Joel, and he told me, yeah.
Well, what are you thinking at that point?
It was, just devastating.
Can you tell us about your relationship with Joe?
I hope everybody's got somebody that they can trust completely, no matter what. And that's, you know, basically what it was. I was there at his house pretty much every day. We did everything together.
So they had you on the stand and they were making accusations about you?
When I was on the stand, they didn't actually make accusations. They didn't come right out and call me a murderer until the closing arguments.
What do you have to say to the people who accused you of this?
Stop, you know, leave me alone. It was such a big part of my life. You know, I had nothing to do with this. Anybody that knew me and knew Joel and was close to both of us and knew the kind of relationship that we had, they know. And these people don't. They're trying to ruin my life. And like I said, you know, I feel like I've pretty much let them do that, and that's a hard thing for me to admit.
He seems more of a victim.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a good term.
We're like brothers.
He's got what they call survivor's guilt. People that survive situations like that, they almost blame themselves for not being there.
That's what he's doing.
So I'd like to rule Travis out completely.
Reggie and I were quite certain at this point that Travis Thompson had nothing to do with the murders. The police had looked into the allegations and found no evidence. and Travis himself dispelled any lingering doubts we had.
Here he is.
But we knew that the only thing that mattered now was the name on that 911 tape. The next day, we went to meet with the forensic audio expert we had sent the 911 recording to. He said he was finished with his analysis.
Jerry Palace.
Good to see you, John Welsh, Reggie Britt.
John often testifies in cases involving audio evidence and does extensive work for law enforcement. With Jessica's 911 tape, he ran it through high-end software, the same used by the FBI.
I have a few segments here that I think that we ought to listen to that are going to be of particular interest. This whole file is this quick. I'll show you this in three-dimensional. Okay? If you look at the beginning of her word, it is obviously a plosive. There's nothing behind it. Pa, pa.
Okay.
Now, when you start to make the noise with the ah or ah, e, eh, now you've got the energy.
So you're saying that where the red is when she energizes it? And it's
That's the energy.
This is the pop coming out, just starting off.
Right. Ending with what appears to be probably an alveolar sound. T, t. All right?
So what are you saying?
I'm saying she's saying Pat. That's what I believe. I would testify that she's saying Pat in that case.
John, is it possible for that to be Travis or Tra?
No.
Not even close to a trap.
No, Travis.
Well, let's listen. Anybody that could pull Travis out of that, I'd like to see how.
I think it's very clear. It sounds clear to me. I hear Pat, I hear it really definitive. And the fact that you say it, you're the expert.
After all we had learned throughout our investigation, it all came down to Jessica's dying declaration. At this point, there was really no turning back for Reggie and I. There was only one last thing to do: go back to the prison and confront McCreary with what we had learned.
Hey, Patrick, we're back again. I want to go over a few things with you. Maybe you can help us clear them up.
Do you know what a dying declaration is?
It's what their last words are, dying declarations.
Well, you sat in that courtroom. You heard that tape.
Yes, I did.
One of the most chilling tapes I've ever
Yes,
heard.
it is.
Chilling, right? What'd you think of that?
Pretty bad stuff right there on that tape.
You know why they accepted it as a dying declaration?
No, I don't.
Because she said your name.
I beg to differ from that. I've not heard my name through 2 trials, and I've got witnesses breaking down the tape, and it does not say my name nowhere other than cousin.
Patrick, we wanted to give you, Patrick, the benefit of the doubt. We went out and got an expert that'll testify in any court in America. And he plainly says, she says Pat.
What do you think about that?
That's a bunch of bull, in my opinion, because if she clearly said that in any way at all, I would have been convicted in the first trial. Period. Exclamation mark.
I got to tell you right now, as far as I'm concerned, after hearing that tape, it's you. There's no one else. It's Pat. Not only that, what about the calls to Leanne Muncie and Emma Faust? She also told them.
Well,
that's 3 nails. So, I mean, why don't you take responsibility for what you did? You have your family, the Blevins family, all these families that you've destroyed in your wake, and this ripple effect you've had on people. This girl was dying. You killed her and shot her like a dog. And you did the same to Joel. And you continue to lie to your family, everybody.
Well, that's your own assumption.
That's not assumption, that's fact. That's fact.
The thing is, you're only hearing the 911 tape part of it. But there's a lot of things people are choosing to overlook. Crime scene evidence. There was none ever taken. There's no fingerprints taken to prove elsewise. Nothing. They just pointed a finger and said he done it. I've been saying that through the whole trial. Nobody listens. It's all their own little mind. They've got me. They've got evidence. What fucking evidence? Where's the evidence? And everybody wants to take his tape, twist it around. Nobody wants to hear nothing but what they've got mixed up and messed up and put in their head. I'm not going to admit someone else's guilt, period, ever, ever.
I heard that tape. It's clear, it's positive, it's you. And you will not stand up and take responsibility for what you did to, what you did to that girl. How the hell do? You executed her, you executed Joel, you belong here, you should rot here.
You're where you belong, buddy. Where you belong. He don't have no remorse, no nothing. He's never going to give us up.
He is colder today than he was the first day we came here.
Yeah. He's talking about assumption. We didn't deal in assumptions.
We had to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, well, this guy he's the right man. He's the right man. He's dumb.
There's no doubt in my mind.
No doubt in my mind either.
Jerry, let's get out of here.
Let's go. Come on.
Between Reggie and myself, we have over 50 years experience in the NYPD. We've seen and heard it all. So we feel comfortable saying that after nearly 3 months of our own independent investigation, the police got it right, and Patrick McCreary is behind bars where he belongs.